So, I promised a faction rundown at the end of my last video, but I've decided to hold off until the new update. Instead, I'd like to take a moment to talk about stuff I like that I can't see myself easily slotting into a main Quasimorph video. The game's captured my interest since it had a slightly longer name, and there are a few reasons for that besides the gameplay. First off, the visuals. You've seen them, and in general, I like them. And I'll admit, I've got a bias for pixel art. But I'd say this art is especially good. The planets and the Magnum look like what they're supposed to be. Each station is given unique shape and appearance. Character portraits are super varied. Everything from your right-hand gal Jang to the creepy leader of Civ Res to the fucking cyborg soldier-looking boss of Realware. The company logos have a large and a mini version, which is a very nice touch. Planet Earth's dark side has lights where there are cities, like those photos taken from space. There's quite a lot of detail. But what really catches my eye is the sheer number of items, from the simplest sack of synthetic food to the latest experimental weaponry. Like, look at this Galand. It's a shit-ass pistol you only get by looting what are basically civilians, and how bare and simple the weapon appears communicates this barrel-bottom status. But despite how bare-bones it looks, the artist still includes enough of the smaller details. The top of the gun is shiny while the bottom is in shadow. There are a few pixels devoted to a trigger guard and hammer, and the weapon cylinder is outlined, foreshadowing its limited capacity. Even the absolute shittiest of pistols is a beautiful foundation that its better variants then build on, becoming, well, still not my weapon of choice, but a lot better than before for sure. This blend of visual quality and distinction carries into each item in the game, with each sprite making use of light and shadow while still being able to clearly display what the items are. Armor plates looks different from rusty metal, look different from ceramic plates. Each item even has its own floor sprite. And in another nice detail, armor pieces and held weapons change a unit's appearance in the game world, both the player and the enemies. And that level of texture and shading for so many items in a game with a pixel art style, that's not something I see too often. And to then include so much more on top, it shows that someone cares. Next up, the writing. Magnum Scripting more than earns their name in this field. The writing is not just great, it's excellent. Factions have multi-paragraph entries detailing their origins and activities. Both celestial bodies and their individual locations the player visits have their own descriptions, ranging from brief to detailed, explaining what they are, do, and what value they might have for a faction to possess. And these locales are varied. As an example, one of the stations near Venus is really just a real-life Russian satellite that has accumulated so much junk, people began to build on top of it. Now Mekta is home to a spaceport, a business center, a spy school, a shooting range, a brothel, a drugs kitchen, and a prison. One of the asteroids in the Outer Rim has a description that outright asks why Realware hasn't nuked it yet. On the Havoc satellite orbiting Mercury, you can take a shuttle to expose your brain to the sun's magnetic field. I won't pretend every location is a wacky wonder. A foundry is a foundry, slums are slums, food is bugs. But that presence of the mundane alongside the insane helps the latter stand out while making the world of Quasimorph as a whole far more believable. Besides just laughing at the amusing elements of the setting, each description I read felt like I was learning a little more about what people might do for work or fun, where they get their food and equipment, and where they go to sleep at the end of a workday. And that explanation of everyday life that we don't see in gameplay, it shows someone cares. Finally, music. I'm no musician myself, and I can barely tell what genres are what, so I'll just say Quasimorph's soundtrack has a heavy use of electric guitars and a dynamic music system that helps the right track play at the right time. Each celestial object picks one set of 3 tracks of low, medium, and high intensity based on quasimorphosis level. Low intensity tracks mostly provide a tense air, while the real horrors haven't arrived. A single mistake can still be fatal. At medium intensity, more instruments are added and tracks become far more action-oriented. Quasimorphs are starting to E-collapse and random and are getting stronger, not to mention whatever security service was already present. At high intensity, the music hits its peak alongside the action, quasimorphosis, and difficulty. My personal favorite of these is Olirna's, titled Over 1000 in the supporter pack. The segment at 1:30 is just... Mwah. And I can personally assure you, that quality remains consistent throughout the entire soundtrack. It's a reward for having survived so long, a warning of impending danger, and an encouragement to go out there and survive that too. And all that, it shows someone cares. The reason I respect, even adore all this is a bit hard to articulate. In some sense, everything I just praised is superficial and irrelevant. After all, they're not necessary for the software or gameplay mechanics to function. But the fact they're added anyway, and in such detail, is what really gets me. Like I've been saying, the amount of detail and content made for this game shows someone cares. More than that, it shows multiple people care. And that's something I'm drawn to. And of course, these elements are in fact absolutely necessary. Each of the superficial aspects are part of both a game's presentation and its overall look and feel, its vibes, so to speak. What captured my interest back during the demos was the feeling of gameplay and combat. The vibe was that combat was brutal, fighting dirty was rewarded, and that I'd have to scrounge for every piece of gear I could get. But the premise of gritty sci-fi mercenaries and the image of that spaceship is probably what made me want to experience all that to begin with. And the sprite work and lore entries and music that appear in this early access version, they all enhance that vibe. They make environments and equipment appealing, immerse me in the world, and connect me to the gameplay in a way the mechanics alone can't accomplish. So yes, they're not necessary, but they absolutely are. And in both cases, they showed people care. And those are just a few reasons why I enjoy early access extraction roguelike Quasimorph so damn much. Thanks for listening. Next video is probably going to be after the updates. Next video on Quasimorph anyway. I'll see you then.